you are currently the CEO of Modal. So it's a new startup.
Yep.
And so what pressing data issue does your company Modal solve?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of like to say, like, purely selfishly, I built Modal to solve a bunch of stuff I always wanted, working with data for, I don't know how many years, 15 years maybe. So Modal is a way to basically get rid of a lot of traditional infrastructure that I find gets in the way of me actually building things and scaling it out and productionizing things and scheduling things. So the idea is it's like sort of like a serverless data execution engine in the same vein as kind of maybe like Lambda or
Gotcha.
Vercel, maybe what Vercel is doing for front-end team. Actually, funny, I met Guillermo last night, the CEO of Vercel. In a similar way, like I feel like there's an opportunity to build something for data teams where you don't have to think about infrastructure, where you can just like write code and like ship it into the cloud and it just like works. So that's sort of aspirationally what I've been working on.
That sounds really exciting. I think we're going to get into later in the episode talking about some of your open source projects. So this kind of sounds like a theme throughout your career. You identify major problems, things that you would like to have, tools you'd like to have, and then you invent them.
Yeah, and I feel like I do it almost like out of spite sometimes. I'm like, this is annoying. Like, why isn't there a better tool? And then I'm like, finally, like I give in. I'm like, I guess I'll have to do this then. And then I build it. So I think that's been the common theme throughout my career is like I never wanted to build anything of this, but I kind of felt like I had to because there was a gap.
Nice. Yeah, it sounds like you're onto a gap here with Modal. Being able to, as you say, just ship data science solutions into the cloud relatively seamlessly, that is a holy grail.
I think so too.
Yeah.
I think so too.
So besides data engineers, it seems like an obvious candidate for your target market. Who else is in your target market for this tool?
I mean, I think it's actually very general in the sense that we're building something that arguably like aims to replace Kubernetes, which is kind of, a big, audacious goal. And in that sense, I think, anyone who uses Kubernetes really, but in particular, we tend to focus right now on the types of problems that data teams have. And so it's primarily data. I don't know, there's like 500 titles today, but data engineers, data scientists, like machine learning engineers, maybe analytics engineers, like maybe, I don't know, whatever new role there is today. But it's a fairly general product in the sense that I think for the stuff that you need to write in code, which I think there's always going to be stuff you're going to have to do. I mean, there's like amazing stuff you can do with SQL today and like a big fan of data warehouses in general. But there's always stuff you're gonna have to write code for. And like today, when you write code, it's kind of hard to productionize it and scale it up. And like, you have to deal with Docker and Kubernetes and I don't know, all these other stuff, Helm charts and Terraform and like AWS. And like, what if there's like a way where you can just like work with the cloud where you just like feel like it's just, your local computer? Yeah,
so Kubernetes is designed to work really well with Docker containers, which you just mentioned.
Yeah.
Does Modal work with Docker containers, or kind of it allows you to circumnavigate them entirely?
You can use Docker containers with Modal, but we don't use Docker. I mean, Docker containers are sort of just like same thing as like OCI containers, which is the underlying file format. And Modal's essentially uses the same idea of like containers, that format of like, here's like a root file system. What is a container? A container is like a root file system. It's like the slash, directory on Linux and then the whole root file system. And in the same way, we basically let you package those things and execute them in the cloud. Containers, there's like the runtime side of it, which is like, there's a bunch of chroot and seccomp and a bunch of stuff. And for a lot of stuff, people use virtual machines too. So that's the other side of it. And we've had to build all of these things. Like we've had to build our own file system. We've had to build our own container runtime. We had to build our own container builder, which actually uses the Dockerfile syntax. Because I think Docker, like, it has, for what it's worth, become a little bit of a standard,
for sure,
file format or whatever you want to call it, interchange format for containers.
Yeah, we talk about it all the time on the show. And anybody who's come on and talked about MLOps, Docker is one of those tools that they're like, you got to know Docker, you got to know Kubernetes, at least for now. But it sounds like maybe in the future, people will be talking about Modal instead.
Yeah, my life goal is no one should have to write YAML or Docker files in the future.
Nice.